Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a fascinating hand-drawn storyboard titled The Stickman Who Kept Walking. Now, on the surface, it's a simple pencil sketch about a little figure climbing a hill. But as we'll see, it actually reveals a highly structured, incredibly powerful framework for leading corporate teams through high-stakes, pressure cooker projects. If you've ever had to guide a team through intense challenges, well, this visual narrative is absolutely going to change the way you look at leadership. But before we get to the artwork, I want you to ask yourself something. How exactly do you manage a team that is staring down an insurmountable Q4 target or a massive make-or-break product launch? You know the feeling. Often, in these high-pressure corporate environments, everyone on the team feels too small, under-resourced, and already too late. We're going to use the Stickman's journey to answer this exact question. Today's explainer is broken down into 5 core phases: facing the impossible goal, the inevitable team setback, the choice to lead, navigating the corporate storm, and finally, discipline over motivation. We're going to map this Stickman's climb directly onto your team's project lifecycle. Let's get into it. All right, phase 1, facing the impossible goal. Our story kicks off right at the edge of a blank notebook page. There's this massive, rough sketch of a mountain and just a deep, paralyzing sense of doubt. Look at the comparison here. On the left, our stickman is standing at the bottom corner of a torn page, just staring up at this jagged charcoal mountain. No map, zero certainty. And on the right, that's your high-pressure corporate target. I mean, it perfectly mirrors a team looking up at those aggressive growth quotas or impossible deadlines. The source actually notes that the stickman sees faint silhouettes of others who are already way up the mountain. In your world, that's your team looking at competitors who already seem to have cornered the market. It's totally overwhelming, right? So the crucial thing here is acknowledging the emotional toll of the starting line. The artwork shows the stickman slumping in this classic pose of doubt, head down, scratching his head, this empty, wavy thought bubble hanging over him. As a leader, you absolutely must recognize these feelings of being too small, too slow, and too late. It is a valid emotional reality for your team. The temptation to just turn around is huge. But hey, your job isn't to make the mountain smaller. Your job is to guide them to take that very first, wobbly, imperfect step forward. Just one step. Not a full sprint, just a single movement onto the path. Which brings us to phase 2, the inevitable team setback. Because let's be real, in the corporate world, that first step rarely goes smoothly. And this part brilliantly illustrates the mid-project failures that nobody ever posts about on LinkedIn. The artwork gets chaotic here. Dynamic lines showing the stickman tumbling backward in the dust, limbs everywhere, surrounded by impact lines and loose pebbles. This right here, this represents your crashed project. It's the lost major account, the massive software bug that derails the launch, or that enterprise client churning. The visual ends with the stickman flat on his back at the base of the mountain, just staring up into an empty sky. It's this moment of absolute stillness and defeat. You have to know, your team is going to hit the dirt. It is completely inevitable. So what happens next? That's phase 3, the choice to lead. This is exactly where basic management transforms into true leadership. Here is your executive moment of truth. The source uses this beautiful 3-panel sequence, kind of like a hand-drawn comic strip. Panel 1, lying down. Panel 2, a hand pressing firmly into the ground. Panel 3, pushing up onto one knee. The narrator makes such a profound point here. The moment you're flat on the ground is actually the only moment that matters. The fall isn't the defining act, the choosing is. As a leader, literally nobody else can make this choice for your team. You have to actively decide to dust off, acknowledge the failure out loud, and set the tone for getting back up. Now, once the stickman is standing again, brushing the dust off, something incredible happens to the artwork. The mountain in the background? It's drawn the exact same size, but the stickman's posture has completely changed. Shoulders back, chin up. Why? Because he's no longer terrified of falling. He has already survived the fall. And that is exactly the resilient mindset shift you've got to foster in your corporate team. That Q4 target hasn't changed, the mountain is exactly the same size, but your team's perspective shifts the second you show them that failing a mid-project milestone isn't fatal. Moving on to phase 4, navigating the corporate storm. Because getting back up is great, but the actual climb, that requires serious endurance. The source visualizes this endurance with this really cool time-lapse montage. We see all these small sketches of the stickman winding up the path, connected by a dotted line, with tiny handwritten tally marks reading day 1, day 2, day 10, day 100. This is where the real corporate crunch happens. As a leader, you've got to get your team hyper-focused on daily micro progress. Look, you don't climb the whole mountain on day 10. You just climb day 10's part. One step becomes 10 and 10 becomes 100. And the hardest part? You have to keep your team moving even when nobody is watching and absolutely nobody is clapping. But then, halfway up, the environment just turns hostile. The sketch darkens with heavy charcoal shading. We're talking storm clouds, jagged lightning, and these intense diagonal rain lines hitting the Stickman. It's the perfect allegory for mid-project chaos. Suddenly, boom, there are budget cuts, a key team member resigns, or executive leadership pivots the entire strategy. The wind is howling. Every excuse in the world shows up, literally begging your team to stop. Their legs are tired, their hands are cold. But you have to step in and remind them that quitting right now would waste every single step of progress they've already fought for.
And that brings us to phase 5, discipline over motivation. This is the absolute climax of the narrative.
As the Stickman leans his body intensely into the diagonal rain, pressing forward against the wind, the source reveals the most crucial takeaway of this entire explainer. Motivation doesn't get you through the storm. Discipline does. Think about it. We spend so much time in corporate leadership trying to, quote-unquote, motivate our teams. But motivation, it's a fair weather friend. It is a fleeting luxury that vanishes the absolute second those dark clouds roll in. So, we actually have to redefine what gets us to the finish line. While motivation might look like a rah-rah corporate retreat or a flashy kickoff meeting, true discipline is completely different. It's the gritty reality of showing up and taking the next step when the market is down, the team is exhausted, and honestly, absolutely nobody feels like doing it. The source literally calls this the whole secret. You lean in. You take one more step through the storm. That's it.
And eventually, the storm lines do thin out. The path levels off. The story culminates with this great wide shot from behind the Stickman, standing victorious at the mountain's peak with sun rays just bursting into the frame. Now listen to this. He didn't reach the top because his team was the fastest. He didn't reach it because their execution was flawless. Actually, if you look closely at the path behind him, you can still see the tiny X mark where he fell earlier. He reached the peak simply because he never, ever stopped choosing to stand back up.
This so elegantly visualizes the core message you need to drill into your teams in these high-pressure environments. Your team does not need to feel completely ready. They do not need to feel motivated. All they need is your guidance to take the next single step. Tell them it's okay to fall. Just set the absolute non-negotiable standard that they cannot stay down.
The source material ends beautifully with just a single, simple footprint sketched in the dirt and the words, "Keep walking." As we leave that footprint on the page today, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Look at your own high-pressure environment right now. That project deadline, it isn't moving. The mountain isn't going anywhere. And motivation sure isn't coming to save you. So your team is waiting. What is the very next step you are going to take with them today? Keep walking, everyone.